So, viewers of this channel will remember that from time to time, and at least over the years, we have covered stories from a blog and a persona, because that's all we know him as, a persona known as the Secret Barrister. Now, this is a guy who works in the UK legal profession as a prosecutor and a Crown prosecutor, as far as we are aware, from what the clues he has given us, and is heavily involved in the UK criminal justice scene. Now, because he's got first-hand experience, he is very often told some incredible, harrowing stories from this. Not just that, but some incredible sites that we have been told over the years, such as there isn't enough legal aid defence fund. And we should be worried about this, because this is people who are genuinely not guilty, but can't afford lawyers and can't afford even their own prosecution, and thus ended up with just poor or downright poor lawyers who can't actually themselves afford the necessary stuff to go and prove their client's innocence. And this has ultimately led to people who aren't guilty having to plead guilty. That's a problem. We then have a system of the actual infrastructure of the courts themselves. Many are crumbling into pieces. We have courtrooms where apparently he once said there was literally a bucket in the middle of the floor with a giant leak coming in through. You know, the UK criminal justice system really is in a bind, and I'm so glad that there are now seem to be more people, or again, at least it seems to be more people coming to this realization that, you know, we talked about obviously funding cuts to councils and things like that, but we've never talked about funding cuts to courts and the effect that it is really having on our society and our criminal justice system. So this comes from The Guardian, and I think this is really important to go over, to be honest. So before we do that though, please do remember to hit that like and share button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link should you like to support the channel that way. And of course, thank you very much to the people that do so for supporting me. Your support means quite a lot to me. So, on with the article. So, this comes from The Guardian, and the title is, "The Criminal Justice System is on its knees, says top English lawyer." So, Crown Court cases are being delayed until 2023. The innocent penalised more than the guilty. The underfunded criminal justice system is brought on its knees, according to the chair of the Criminal Bar Association in England and Wales. James Mulholland, QC, told The Guardian that while COVID has intensified the crisis, deep cuts to the Ministry of Justice since 2010 have left it dangerously under-resourced. The result was that the very vulnerable people who have to go through the system are being let down, he said. You can't have a completely underfunded system from beginning to end. Mulholland, 56, represents thousands of barristers who are struggling to hold the system together during the pandemic. But still immersed in trial and processes himself, he witnessed the crisis firsthand. Approximately over 50,000 Crown Court cases are waiting to be heard, of which 33,000 will involve full trials. Last year, without COVID, Mulholland pointed out the Crown Courts managed to complete only 12,000 trials. The system is in complete logjam, he said. We are having some cases listed well into 2023 for trials where people are being released on bail, sometimes for offences like rape, sexual offences, affray and significant burglaries. Sentencing judges are now entitled to take into account the COVID experience and deliver reduced prison terms. So, while the innocent may be held longer in custody awaiting trial, the guilty are benefiting from the coronavirus. We are holding people in custody for up to 18 months. There's no compensation if they are not found guilty. We have 17-year-olds who are not going to be tried until 2023. They will have to spend their youth waiting for an outcome that will impact their whole lives. He said while the government talked of being tough on sentencing, Only 7% of offending recorded by the police actually resulted in a prosecution. And there's a 1 in 50 chance of an old age pensioner who is being burgled seeing that person actually brought to justice. The police just don't have the resources. Only 1 to 1.5% reported of rapes actually result in charges. And even then, there's the 1,319 days for an average rape case to go through the system from actual offence to completion. Mulholland said that he feared the criminal justice system was in danger of losing the public's confidence and generating miscarriages of justice, alienating victims before even the pandemic. The backlog of cases was growing because of the court system saved money by limiting the number of judges' sitting days. His diagnosis of the root cause of the problems and hampering the criminal justice system is only one thing: lack of money. All the main professional legal bodies agree with this analysis. The Lord Chief Justice, Sir Ian Brunette, has also called for increased funding. There must be significant resources to enable the courts and tribunals to work to capacity. Otherwise, backlogs of cases will just be unsustainable, he told the Bar Council. So, this is something, again, we are told the Tories care about. They're the party of law and order. But here you have law breaking down. And here's the thing, I really do care about people having access to a fair trial. I really do believe that. And even regardless of whatever the case they have, whatever crime they may or may not have committed, they deserve their day in court, and they deserve the right to be defended by a legal representative. That is something that, as someone who really deeply believes in our democratic system in the UK, we must preserve. But we are seeing this right that we very often take for granted until we know someone who's has to go through the system, or we know someone that works in the system, or until we actually have to use the system ourselves. We just don't think about it. So this is something that we need to correct, and this all goes back to austerity. Once again, austerity raises its ugly head to cause huge problems. So, it continues. So the cash required, he said, was nothing more than a rounding error in the budgets of many departments. If withholding money from the courts is prevented people from resuming their normal lives and working, he added, it was a false economy. Mulholland said that an extra $250 million a year was needed to solve the problem, a figure devised from an Institute of Government assessment. While extra funding has recently been provided to boost the numbers of police and prosecutors, no equivalent resources have been granted to barristers. Instead, criminal barristers have faced cuts of fees between 30 and 40% over the past 12 years, Mulholland said. Diversity at the bar was also suffering, he noted, because women were leaving mid-career when they realised it was not a profession in which they could both have a family life and receive decent pay. Mulholland grew up in Salford. His parents from Northern Ireland and the Republic were teachers who instilled him with a sense and importance of justice. His family home was educationally rich but not well off. They encouraged him to enter the law on behalf of the underdog, whether they are defendant or the victim. After Leeds University, he studied for the bar in London and was arguing cases. He sometimes sits as a Crown Court recorder as a part-time judge. His experiences in court concern him. We are seeing more litigants in person and unrepresented defendants now as a result of legal aid entitlement thresholds not being increased with line with inflation. What I've told you there, this is really important. This should be a bigger story than it really is, because this will have led to people who are innocent and who don't know the law being unable to defend themselves in court. Again, regardless of their crime, they deserve the right to representation. and to be defended by someone who knows the letter of the law. You know, this is really is just another national embarrassment. But you know, we talk about it before, that there are loads of crises happening. The housing crisis is one that we often talked about that has just gone on and on and on. This well, what can we say? This legal crisis now that we are seeing, it's just another crisis that has been going on and on and on, and sooner or later something's got to give. And unfortunately, I really do fear. This is a prediction, so don't take this as gospel, but I predict this will come to a head when we see someone who gets charged with something and then gets found out to be completely innocent, maybe like a year or two later. And I think that story will just blow up. And I think that's when people will finally take attention. But it shouldn't take that to people to be aware that this is a problem, and this is a problem that the government can solve now, but just won't. So, and they appear in quite serious cases. It's becoming progressively worse. So it's so short-sighted. Trials involving unrepresented defendants take double or even treble the time. It's a false economy, not granting them legal aid. Mulholland said that he was also concerned about the increase in alleged victims refusing to cooperate with the police because they feel they won't receive proper treatment. Funding is crucial. We are on our knees. Underfunding risks miscarriages of justice. We need to fund the prosecution as well as the defence. Everyone needs to be paid more. Where he asked was the Royal Commission on Justice the government promised when it took office in 2019. Glancing around the marble halls in the Old Bailey, from which the late afternoon the light was fading, he observed, well, this was built when the justice system was taken seriously. And there you have it. Once again, something the Tories are meant to care about, but clearly don't. And we see this in them talking about it, but then they actually do nothing about it. As a result, we are left with a system that is crumbling and will cause huge problems in the long run for people who are innocent and both guilty as well. And they need to be represented fairly and equally before the law. You know, this is a massive problem. And this is something that, regardless of your take on whoever they might be, they deserve fair representation. So with that, please do share and like this video, because it is a message that needs to be spread and something that people need to be made aware of. Also, if you would like to support the channel in another way, please do head down below to my Patreon page and consider becoming my Patreon, and there's a one-off donation link as well. And also go and follow The Secret Barrister if you want to know more about just how really bad our criminal justice system is. So with that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time.